Hey guys, I thought I'd redo my top 3 video. I know it's been really soon since the last one, but I did get a lot more information about T4s now that people have been able to test Aegina, Kurt, and Bale at T4, and we've seen kind of what they're capable of doing. So I thought I'd redo this, and I wanted to organize it a little bit better and sort best runes and artifact for each ones. Bear in mind, this is a ranking for T4. The rankings for 10 star is a little bit different, and I hope to go into that a little bit with each one. I will be taking down the previous video so that people don't get too confused. With that being said, let's start. So first, let's start with Alliance. So Alliance hasn't changed. Valkyrie's still far and away the best Alliance, potentially the strongest T4 hero in the game. She does ridiculous damage. She reduces their attack. She does a lot of healing, all of that stuff. However, as a warrior, she doesn't come with any hit rate. So you're going to need to find either to put a hit rate artifact or a rune on her. So as a rune, probably you can put Defense Break or Storm Attack. Storm Attack is the one that has like 5% hit rate and like 18% attack, something like that. But that's going to depend on what artifact you put on. So she's really good with Ragnarok, but Ragnarok doesn't come with hit rate. So you're going to want to use Storm Attack if you use Ragnarok. If you use Gospel Song, which is the Alliance-specific hit rate artifact, then you can go ahead and use Defense Break as a rune. Talents for her, probably Attack, True Damage, and Clear Crowd Control at 30%. Next is going to be Saizo. Now, Saizo is capable of killing people and taking out their revive. However, it doesn't work if Skuld is on the team. He will stop Mars, Monkey King, Phoenix, all that, but if Skuld is on the team, his skill won't work. So, very annoying. He needs to be in a good situation for him to go off, and doesn't always happen. He really needs Skuld to be good because he's slow, and you're going to need to have him clear crowd control. I don't think that he has an all-around best artifact or gear because like Detlef, his setup can change a little bit depending on how you're using him. So with that said, Assassins also need hit rate, so he does very well with hit rate, rune, and artifact as well. So he doesn't really have a best setup, I think. So Ultima and Tesla I have at 3 and honorable mention. At T4, I believe Ultima is better just because she offers like a good team buff, and whereas Tesla's stun is very good, but he's just slow and he doesn't do enough damage. At 10 star, that's reversed. Tesla is better than Ultima at 10 star, but T11 and beyond up to T4, I think Ultima is a little bit better at buffing the rest of your team and making them stronger. So for Ultima, I like to use Speed as a rune, and you can choose to use some sort of an energy artifact or a damage reduction if you're using her as a sub-tank, or you can use Speed as an artifact as well. However, I will say that because Ultima and Tesla are both much lower than Saizo in strength, they're not recommended to be early T4s or 10 stars or people that you should be focusing on at all. Tesla also, he functions with speed and or energy, but remember, because he's slow, nothing great. Okay, so moving on, next is Horde. Now, we have been able to see a lot of T4 Kurt in action, and it's safe to say that he does not outdo Phoenix really in any situation. Phoenix, if you're going to make a unity team, Phoenix is hands down better. However, if you go off Aura and you have Kurt, you're going to need to pair him with 1 or 2 Phoenixes anyway. So, but that's not to say that he's not still very strong. So Phoenix, our classic super support hero, one of the best in the game. At T4, definitely speed is a good option for his rune, for his artifact. Phoenix, as a cleric, does not come with hit rate, just like assassins. So having blood metal or Eye of Heaven on him is very, very good, because he needs to hit his first attack in order to fire his skill. Now his skill doesn't miss at T4, so it's better at T4, but at all points he needs to hit his regular attack in order to even fire his skill. So for those cases, Eye of Heaven, Blood Metal are very, very good for him. However, if you hit a point where most of your team has energy anyway, you can use energy on Phoenix, and that helps to set up the rest of your damage from the rest of your team a lot faster. So it is an option. Phoenix's best talents vary depending on how you use him. As a tank, you probably want to use T3, the Reflect, rather than the plus 50% damage. T1 and T2, if he's tanking, you can use health or HP T1 and damage reduction T2, or you can test your limits and see just how much attack you can put on him and still not have him be the first to die. So you kind of have to play with it depending on how strong you are relative to your opponents, and you can kind of see. So if you can put attack, true damage, and reflect on him and still have him be one of the last to die, do it. If not, then try making him a little bit more defensive. So he is a very versatile character. Next is going to be Kurt. Now Kurt is crazy. His skill, when it gets buffed up by this, his skill does crazy high damage, very, very high damage. However, his one downside is that he's really, really slow. So he is going to be, like Saizo, in really their own category of very slow, very powerful, can help you win if they go off, lose really badly if they get crowd controlled. That's just an entire category of heroes, and there's a couple others in it too. So if he gets powered up a lot by his allies, you know, if you have a couple of Phoenixes firing, or if you have energy, Mars, Chesia, Freya, Luna, Dro, one of those, and they're all firing before him, he gets very strong. So you can actually put energy on him as well, if the rest of your team has energy, similar to Phoenix. Otherwise, you can put a damage dealing artifact like Ragnarok, or even Eye of Heaven, or one of the Horde attack artifacts, Blood Metal actually. They all work fine on him. I think that, again, is going to depend on who your opponent is. But really, with that in mind, Death Break is probably going to be his best rune. Otherwise, just attack. That's fine too. But Death Break does provide more damage than attack. So he is going to be the same thing as Phoenix, which is set him up to be full attack, true damage, and plus 50% power. As far as whether he should be put in front or back, because he changes, that depends on the rest of your team. If you want him to blitz them down, put him in the back. If you want to try to outlast them a little bit, put him in the front. It varies. So next is going to be Medusa. Now, I put Medusa in third for a reason. She's not good. She's good up to 10 stars, and beyond that, she's terrible. By default, that's what puts her in third place in Horde. However, if you're planning to go beyond 10 stars, remove her from your list. Don't make her. She does well with a speed artifact and speed rune. So you can put Gun of the Disaster, or just boots on her, or an energy artifact if you, again, have a lot to spare. But most people don't, so just focus on speed. If pairing her with Freya, make sure that she is slower than Freya, so that Freya can petrify them before Medusa does her damage. For honorable mention for Horde, I put none, because honestly, none of these heroes are worth making at all. So, ignore them all. Alright, so next is Elf. I am changing this a little bit. I'm swapping the position of Dro and Lorelei, so I put Dro on top. The reason for that is because Dro at 10 stars plus gets her cleric stun, and this cleric stun is going to be pretty crucial. It turns out that even at T4, crowd control still is very much a thing. So having any sort of crowd control is better than not having it, and plus it's 80% to stun clerics, so it's a pretty good chance to have, especially since people all have their own phoenixes, Dros, Shudde, Skulls, all of those. So having Dro be able to stop them is very, very big. Additionally, Dro by nature is the second fastest unit in the game, so she has the potential to stop almost all other clerics, minus Shudde with speed. And the other fastest unit actually is Ultima, but you're not going to see a lot of Ultimas at the highest level anyway. So Dro really wants to have an energy artifact if possible, and if not, just speed. So speed rune, speed artifact, or energy artifact, but either way, speed rune. Her talents kind of depends on what you're using her for. In general, I find to be safe to use attack on T1, damage reduction on T2, and then on T3 I like the one that when one of your ally crits, you poison them. That one's not real. The other one is not really useful for Dro. But if you find that she dies too much, try changing her T1 to HP. So moving Lorelei into second. Now Lorelei does do very high damage, and she does get a lot of these resistances. She ups your team's resistance. At T4 she adds silence resistance. But that resistance alone is not really good enough because burn, bleed, poison don't matter nearly as much as like stun, paralyze, or stun, petrify, silence, and freeze, and all of those. So these are helpful, but they just don't add enough to the team to make her top tier. But again, she does do very high damage, so she's a good B team material, but nothing too crazy. Runes and stuff for her, she doesn't need an energy artifact because she has one built in. Where is it? This one increases energy by 50, so she always fires her skill first turn anyway. But since she's very slow, she doesn't really even add these buffs so much. So because she's so slow, even adding speed to her won't matter. So you can simply put a Star Prey on her or some sort of damage artifact. She doesn't really need hit rate so much, but anything that adds damage is great for her. Ragnarok, Star Prey, any of those. And then for rune, Death Break. Death Break is the default highest damage rune that you can put on people, and because she doesn't need hit rate, that's probably good enough for her. Third place is Luna. Now, Luna is a fun one. She's semi-rare, sort of decent, and yet, like Medusa, really falls off in usefulness after 10 star. With energy, she is the best tank for Planet Trial and all that. However, she does not tank well in PvP because, I mean, even though it reduces her damage reduction, or it increases her damage reduction, if she gets silenced or petrified before she can fire her skill turn 1, she's just going to die. And even if she does fire it, she doesn't do enough damage to carry the rest of the team when they die. So she just isn't a very useful one to take beyond 10 stars. So she's great with, she needs an energy artifact and a speed rune. That's really the only viable setup for her, but she's not a great T4, so please keep that in mind. Honorable mention, I have Grand and Vedras here. Honestly, they're about the same tier. They're mediocre tanks, and Nothing special. Just someone if you need it, if you happen to need a tank, but these two are not good choices to go beyond 10-star with either. So next is Undead. So having seen kind of how Shudde does at T4, nobody has liked her performance. So this is going to be a situation kind of like the rest of them where the third place is the same as don't really try to make. But I'll get to that in a sec. So first place here is, of course, Aegina. She is so strong. All she has to do is fire her skill once and die, and she will still outdamage most of your team, potentially the highest on your team. Reasoning for that is because her skill comes with lots and lots of damage over time, plus she does extra damage to targets that are poisoned and bleeding and silenced, which she does all of. So she just does lots and lots and lots of damage. Her crowd control percentage is not amazing. She has, what, 25% chance to silence. It's not really reliable, but it's something nice to have on top of her super high damage. On top of that, she actually comes with her own little bubble to prevent one crowd control effect. So even without Scald, she still has the potential to do a lot of damage for you. At T4, or especially at 10 stars, this is going to be gigantic. When a lot of people don't really have a Scald to work with. But at T4, when most people start to have it, this becomes a little bit not as useful, still really good, but not as huge as it is at 10 stars. So Aegina is just really, really strong. Because she's so slow, I like to use an energy artifact on her. It kind of makes sure that she gets to do her damage without banking on some lucky RNG on them not stopping her. But it's kind of up to you. Ragnarok or Soul Torrent is also a great option if you don't have energy. For Rune, Defense Break is probably her best just for pure damage because she does so much damage. Talents, just set her up with full attack, true damage. For T3, I like to use the one that does damage to the team when somebody dies, but that's going to kind of depend on your opponent. So for like Den of Secrets or Planet Trial, when people don't die that easily, you can use her other one, which is when the enemy goes below 30% life, they take a bunch of extra damage. Both ones are fine, they just are very situational. So next is going to be Detlef. Now, we all know what Detlef can do at T4. With the right setup, he can one-shot pretty much any T4 in the game, including Valkyrie. But the right setup involves him getting a crit, also involves him not getting crowd controlled, and his other problem is if they have Scald and he kills someone and they revive, he doesn't get energy back when they die. So he has the potential to do ridiculous damage if they don't have Scald, or if someone else dies and uses her revive before he fires. But he's slow. If he gets crowd controlled, he does nothing. If he hits someone that revives, he does nothing. So he's really live by the sword, die by the sword kind of a thing. Sometimes he'll win for you, sometimes he will do absolutely nothing. There's not a lot of in between with Detlef. I use a crit rate rune on him because he needs to crit to be able to one-shot most T4s. With a crit, he potentially can do like 1.5 to 3 million damage, depending on how he's buffed with the team. And honestly, that's going to kill anybody. But again, depending on who you're fighting. Setup is the same as Aegina, T1 damage, T2 true damage. T3 likely is the same with when someone dies, you do extra damage to the team, but again, situational. Now, is Detlef highly recommended to make T4? If you really have nothing better, do it. Aegina is the only one better. So if you can't make her and you want to keep Unity, then it's gonna have to be Detlef. Shudde is, well, let me get to Shudde. So Detlef, very strong, but very unreliable. Third place will be Shudde. Now, this one is a tricky one because knowing how poorly she is doing at T4, it's possible that at this point you can start to put other people higher. But keep in mind that at 10 stars, she's better than Detlef. Detlef is trash at 10 stars. So don't even, like, if you're a person that's building up to 10 stars, Detlef is terrible. Don't make him. Oh my god, I got cat hair on my mouth somehow. So Shudde is very, very good at 10 stars. But at T4, she just doesn't, her silence is just not enough. Even though at T4 she adds silence on her skill, it's just not enough. So recommended setup for Shudde is speed and speed. She needs to be the fastest unit on the board in order for her to make sure that she can silence people with her regular attack. The reason that she falls off is because even though she's silencing on her first attack, all heaven and hell come with a built-in bubble to resist one crowd control effect at T3. So fighting those and maybe an Aegina means that Shudde is basically just not going to do her job. She's not going to stop them from firing their skills turn 1 because of that built-in bubble. So her usefulness definitely gets reduced a lot. And now the goal is to survive the hits from those people and come back and kill them, because she's not going to be able to do anything else. So speed, Siren's Heart, and Speed Rune. If you got lucky and you have a light pace is better for her because it adds more HP, but otherwise Siren's Heart or just regular Windwalker boots. Okay, so moving on to the honorable mentions, Aiden and Reaper. They're both very high potential damage dealers, but they have the same problem with Kurt and all of those, which is they're slow, they don't do enough damage, they don't bring enough to warrant their use. Also, they really need help from Skuld to make them fire, and if you're using too many slow squishy people with Skuld, she can only revive 1. So they are all like usable, but yeah, they're not really good T4 options if you're trying to go for a viable end game late long-term team. Next is Heaven. Heaven didn't change. Skuld is still the best by far. She's the best support T4 in the game. 10 stars and up, she's amazing. Definitely someone that you should be focusing on as high priority as you can after you've already made some high damage T4s. At T4, her skill adds defense to the whole team, so it's just crazy. So with Skuld, you really want to put an energy artifact on her if possible. If not, just stack attack. Holy Light Justice is good. Gift of Creation is good if you want her to stay alive a little bit longer. But energy is one of the better options if she can be faster than your other damage dealers, such as Valkyrie or Detlef or one of those. Her setup is going to be kind of like Dro's, which is make it offensively defensive. I like to put attack T1, damage reduction T2, and resist crowd control 1 time at T3. But again, if she dies too fast, change her T1 to HP. So after Skuld, unfortunately at past 10 stars, the Heaven falls off really badly. Mars is one of the best heroes in the game at 10 stars. However, at T4, he just doesn't do it. His skill doesn't add a lot of extra damage. He doesn't go crazy like Detlef did. Detlef's skill went from 270 to 600% attack. Mars went from 170 to like 220 or something like that. He just does not do a lot of damage. And even though his skill is 4-man 60% stun, because of the bubble that Heaven and Hell get, the same problem with Shudde is just it's not enough. And his damage just doesn't do it. His damage is just not good at T4. So he's great on a B team as a stun to lock people down while maybe you pick them off with Detlef or something like that. But as a primary team, he's just not a great option. Best gear for him is going to be an energy artifact if possible. Otherwise, Holy Light Justice and a speed rune. Next is going to be Lindbergh. Now, Lindbergh is one of those that just should be good. He was okay at 10 stars, and you would think he'd still be pretty good at T4, but unfortunately, his missing plus the bubble means that he's just not, he just lacks the oomph. Now, he just, yeah, even with hit rate runes, he just misses too much. So something to think about when you're making him is he's very squishy, even though he has a lot of HP. Even though he's fast, it's just not good enough. So he's just very strong. He doesn't really want energy artifact, and he doesn't really need speed. You probably would rather have a good hit rate rune on him and then some sort of damaging artifact, potentially one also with hit rate. So like Holy Light Justice is a great one. But prepare for him to die a lot. So you can either set him up for full attack on the talents, or you can set him up for full defense. It's going to vary depending on how he performs for you. But if you set him up for full defense, his damage suffers, so there's that. Honorable mention here, I give it to Verthandi. Now, here's the thing about Verthandi. She was recently buffed so that her reflecting damage went to 50%. This is really high. As a tank, she is crazy good. However, if she's not tanking, she's not good really at all. She doesn't do enough damage. So if you are in a situation where you don't have a good Heaven and you want to make Unity, then you should make her, you should tank with her, and you should watch her do a ton of damage. Stats, stuff for her would be Speed Rune. Oops. Speed Rune. Speed. You can use Gift of Heaven if she's tanking. Holy Light Justice if she's not. Last but not least is Hell. Hell is the one that got shaken up a lot. Now, I originally had Freya on top, Chessia I think second, but I'm going to change it up. We've seen T4 Bale. He's so good at T4 that he doesn't really even need Skuld that much to do ridiculous amounts of damage. So definitely, if you can make him, he's going to be a reliable damage dealer for you. We all know Bale is the one that snowballs. If somebody dies, he gets energy, he keeps firing, and he gets faster and faster as it happens. So his damage is just very, very high. And I believe at T4, he adds some healing on his skill. So he becomes even a bit sturdy, a little bit. So he can survive a little bit better at T4. So again, this is T4 ranking. I will go into how it is at 10 stars after. So I'm not sure on the best gear for him, but most likely is Defense Break for Rune, and probably you can use energy on him, or you can just use the artifact is Eternal Curse. That one. This one's very good for him. So he is just very, very strong. So you probably want to set him up for full attack. Now, let me add a caveat into this, which is Bale before T4 is not good without Skuld. You need Skuld to make him work before T4. At T4, he can do kind of good without her, but before that, no. So definitely in the top 4 ranking, I'd probably put him at 3rd or 4th at 10 stars. So second, I'm going to put Freya. Now, this is the same argument that I made before, which is Freya is a very RNG hero. Her petrify skill is not, her petrify chance is not super high, but it can be the thing that makes or breaks the fight. If she goes off, if she petrifies people, she gets stronger. Oops, this one. So if she petrifies and then gets stronger and then does it again, she can be the highest damage dealer. However, she's not reliable at all. And at T4, her skill adds the ability to steal energy from them. I think it's like a 50% chance. So she can do a lot of damage at T4. Definitely a good option for one of your first ones if you're going to make her. Also, she's relatively easy to get because she's in the soul shop and on the advanced wheel. And you get a free copy at level 100, so there is that. So Freya setup definitely is speed rune. You can use energy on her, or you can use the speed hell artifact. I believe it's called Hell Disaster, the sword. Those are all good options. The reason for using the speed artifact is generally when fighting Mars. However, with Mars being not as big of a factor at T4 anymore, you're probably better off just keeping energy on Freya at this point. So third place is going to be Monkey King. Now, this is something that I did have a debate with someone about. Freya versus Monkey King. He is a rock. He's very solid. He's one of the best pure tanks in the game, if not the best, because he has 85% chance to 100% chance to give damage back. His skill now comes with a 50% petrify to the backline, and it doesn't miss, which is crazy. He's always going to be a very high damage dealer. However, he's often not going to be the reason that you won, whereas Freya will be that reason. So I like Monkey King. He's very good, but he doesn't bring enough oomph to the team in many cases. Like Detlef, he bullies weaker teams, but on his own or on a full team, it's not the best choice, depending on what your team is. So best setup for him is definitely Defense Break Rune with Dragon Blood, or if you're using a Ragnarok on him, you can just put an Attack Rune. So fourth place, unfortunately, I ended up putting Chessia down there. Now we know that Chessia's damage is crazy, 10 stars and up. We know that at T4 it gets better because her skill gains energy every turn. But she only has damage and that's it, nothing else. And at T4 you'll find that that's just not enough. Having a little bit of crowd control or some sort of stacking, some sort of like a gimmick mechanism to make her stronger, like Bale or Detlef, is pretty much required. Unfortunately, she's just not reliably strong enough to be higher than fourth place on this ranking. Best gear for her, definitely Energy Artifact and Defense Break Rune. With that being said, she's still a very high damage dealer for guild bosses, for friends bosses, for Planet Trial, for Den, but when you look at when you take RNG into effect, Freya is probably a better option for most of those, minus friend and guild boss. So that's my new T3 ranking. I went on a little bit longer than I thought I would. Hopefully I managed to cut out a lot more with editing. This replaces my previous one because, again, we know more about the T4s. If I missed something or if you disagree with me, please let me know. I'm open to discussion on this on Discord, Instagram, all of that. That should be all for this video, and see you guys next time.